Hi, my name is Leon, and there are two things you should know about me. One, I'm obsessed with Eastern philosophies. And two, I'm obsessed with music. Today, I'm going to combine these two topics to show you that these seemingly ancient philosophies could still be relevant to your life today. I am going to be discussing Taoist stages of learning and the different states of conscious experience that they show us. To make these abstract concepts just a little more down to earth, I'm going to be using the example of a musician and what their path to mastery might look like. At the end of this path, we're going to find the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, or effortless action. Sometimes I think scholars often focus too heavily on this stage without properly acknowledging the path leading there. Given that Taoism can already be quite vague, it's important that we acknowledge the broader path. Firstly, before that though, you don't have to agree or disagree with Taoist philosophy, but for the next 8 minutes, I just want to have a little fun in exploring something you might be unfamiliar with. So, a little background. Taoism is believed to originate in China in approximately the 4th century BCE. Its foundational text, the Tao Te Ching, is formatted as 60 poems/verses aimed at the ruling class. While they technically contain information on how to govern a population well, they have long since been adapted as guidelines for how to live a happy and balanced life. For example, the Tao Te Ching reads, "Whoever relies on the Tao in governing men doesn't try to force issues or defeat enemies by force of arms. For every force, there is a counterforce. Violence, even well-intentioned, always rebounds upon itself." Taoism can be interpreted in numerous ways, which, in my opinion, is part of its beauty. This one passage has at least 4 different concepts present. Today, I'm just going to be sharing my interpretation of these concepts. So, the first stage is what philosopher Alan Watts refers to as the childlike or natural stage. When I was 6, I picked up a guitar for the first time with no formal training. I banged on the strings unharmoniously, and I sung loudly. It was, needless to say, not very good. All the same, it was this pure, spontaneous expression of joy. And adults humored me because of this. They put aside their selfish desires for peace and quiet because I looked happy. Likewise, while we enjoy seeing babies wobble about dancing, it's not like they're selling out any arenas. Characteristics of this first stage are a lack of skill, spontaneity, and a certain type of innocence. The second stage is the learning stage. When I was 8, my parents bought me my very first guitar. It was this beautiful black classical guitar with a white trim, which I affectionately named Guinness. This is when I began the learning stage. 14 years and 6 guitars later, I would say that I am still in this stage. This stage encompasses a multitude of different skill levels. It includes someone who's only just beginning and someone who can play all of the chords and scales. The key to understanding this stage, then, doesn't have anything to do with skill at all. It's about the conscious state of the performer. Concentration is required to advance through this stage because dedicated practice is how you build skill. Likewise, many mistakes litter this stage. Furthermore, while the level of skill rises, so does the level of mastery, meaning that someone at the higher end of this stage may actually be really enjoyable to listen to. In fact, many of our favorite artists might be at this stage. Sadly, because it's impossible to see inside someone's mind, it's also impossible to tell. The third stage is mastery. On this topic, the Tao Te Ching says, if you want to accord with the Tao, just do your job and then let go. Sometimes, when practicing guitar, I tell my hand to move and I swear it just doesn't listen. This single dead note will ring out across the room, and I know I have to sit down and work harder. If someone were to work hard enough for long enough, they could trust that their chords will always be sweet and their hand will move where they will it. Our musical master no longer has need for the intense concentration that defined the second stage, and so instead, they relax. The third stage, then, is Wu Wei. They can revert to the childlike spontaneity that started this whole process and combine it with the intense skill gained from years of dedicated practice. There's no overthinking, no effort. It just happens. They just flow. So far, we have looked at these stages through the lens of art, but what makes Taoism so fascinating is that they believe in an art of living. It points to a state of consciousness in which one is in harmony with all of life. Admittedly, the Tao Te Ching is notoriously vague on what exactly this means in practice, but I don't think that makes it any less interesting to think about. In fact, I find this whole concept very comforting, not just the final stage, but the stages someone would have to pass through to get there. In our childhood, we laugh and we cry and we sing, because in our innocence, we just do. In our adolescence, we attempt to learn the ways of life, how to comfort a friend, how to do our laundry, and how to make a joke. And we fail. We say the wrong thing, make a cringy joke, and turn all of our white shirts pink. And throughout our life, or at least mine, this process continues, and we fail many more times. What I find so comforting in this thought is that not only is failure normal and inevitable, but it is actually imperative to our growth as individuals. In fact, if we are unwilling to fail, we can never get better at anything, let alone master anything. Look, maybe we'll all master the art of living, and maybe none of us will, but we can all learn something from exploring systems of thought that are unfamiliar to us. If you only take one thing away from my TEDx talk, let it be this. Whether you are learning how to bake, how to play an instrument, or you've decided to tackle the art of living, failure is necessary to achieve mastery. Thank you.